Thank you for joining the Prepared Paralegal podcast. This channel is going to be dedicated to paralegals. However, we're going to be also doing a prepared podcast series. So this podcast is going to be primarily dealing with paralegals and the issues that they raise, from being a student to a seasoned professional. But we are going to have future podcasts that deal with other preparedness things. We're not providing any legal advice or direction on this podcast. We're simply giving our opinion and giving you tips and tricks or resources that will help you on your career path. So in this inaugural podcast, I wanted to talk a little bit about what exactly is a paralegal. Well, a paralegal is basically a right hand to the attorney. They can specialize in all sorts of areas of law, or they can be freelance and have a little bit of knowledge of all areas of law. For instance, if you wanted to specialize in family law, you could be a family law paralegal, and you mostly handle things like child adoptions, divorces, custodies, and that sort of thing. If you wanted to work with something like civil litigation, where you're suing other people or other entities, you could do medical malpractice, you could do contract disputes, constitutional issues. That's a big category. You could also do things more like a transactional paralegal that deals more with contract work, like real estate, trust, probates, that sort of thing. So let's talk a little bit more about what a paralegal is. Well, let's say first what a paralegal is not. A paralegal is not an administrative assistant, secretary, receptionist. I see all the time on job posts where they'll put down administrative assistant and they're expecting you to do paralegal work. No can do on that. You're either a paralegal or you are an administrative assistant. You can't be both. Paralegals do some administrative tasks like typing and photocopy, but they do that for themselves or for the attorney. They don't do it for the office as a whole. We found that a lot of attorneys still don't understand what a paralegal's role is in the firm. So a lot of that gets a gray area. They want you to answer the phones. They want you to be a receptionist. They want you to be a secretary. They want you to be a paralegal. They may work in a very small firm, maybe one attorney, one other staff person. But a paralegal is really not that. A paralegal is a right hand to that attorney. They help that attorney, and they are indispensable to that attorney. So what are the characteristics of a person that's in a paralegal job? So if you're interested or you're going to school right now to be a paralegal, how can you be sure that you're going to be successful once you graduate and get out there in the world? Well, I've come up with 5 different personality traits that I think are very important. They're very basic traits that the person that's going to be a paralegal needs to have. Now, this is not a list that's by any stretch of the imagination a small list. I mean, there are a lot of traits that a person needs to have: business etiquette, being nice to people and all that stuff. This is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about genuine personality characteristics that you normally have in your personal life that can transpose into a business life. So let's look at the first one. The first one is detailed oriented. Now, attorneys rely on paralegals, specifically rely on paralegals, to look over and double check documents, correspondence, interrogatories, all that sort of stuff, discovery. They must be the person who looks at that and goes over it with a fine-tooth comb. The attorney does not have time to do those fine-tooth comb things. And this is where the paralegal really shines. They are charged with preventing mistakes that may get through if the attorney's too busy and they do some work and they send it out and they say, "Oh, I don't have a paralegal, so I didn't see that." So paralegals can really look at things, prevent those mistakes, make sure the job's done correctly, and if there is something that gets through, they can mitigate the damages that might incur from that mistake. And usually they're very small mistakes. So one of the big things is keeping abreast of when things are due, the dates they're due. That is one of the big things, from court dates to when things are supposed to be filed at the courthouse, trial dates, all that sort of hearing dates, all those sorts of things. the paralegal takes care of that. Almost every document filed, from complaints to motions to cross complaints, they all have time constraints. So if a paralegal is not detail oriented, so you need to really have the ability to proofread quickly and effectively. Okay. Another characteristic is being an independent and critical thinker. One of the very important things a paralegal does and sets them apart from all the other administrative people, all the other administrative jobs in the firm or department, is their ability to understand legal process, legal terms, and incorporate that into the business office. A paralegal also needs to be an investigator and researcher. They need to be able to take something and unravel it and find out the answer to that question. They need to be an active learner rather than just receiving information passively. They need to be independent and critical thinkers. They need to always ask questions. They always need to assume that things are wrong until they find the answer. They will always seek to determine whether the ideas, arguments, or findings represent the entire picture, and if they don't, find out why. This is very important in legal research. Legal research is one of those things where you're searching for an answer for your client. Okay? You need to find precedent for your client. And you're not always able to do that. But you need to be able to find things that are also detrimental to your client and bring that to the attorney's attention, because the attorney can prepare for that. Because I guarantee you the other side's looking at that. They're also doing legal research. So the more that you can find for your argument for your client is going to win better in court. It's going to look better in court. It's going to look like you are a well-rounded paralegal. Research is one of those things that I'm not real fond of, to be honest. But it does help your client. It does help your client. So make sure that you are able to do that pretty well, and that you're able to make the independent decisions on the fly, and you'll be fine. Another character trait that I find important is being a great communicator. Sometimes paralegals are the first point of contact past that front desk for anybody. It can be a client, it can be opposing counsel, it can be court staff, it can be investigators, it can be contractors, whatever. But you're usually the person that they speak to before the attorney. You need to be able to be an excellent writer and conversant in legal language. You're able to take legal language and apply it to plain English. That is extremely important when dealing with clients, because clients do not understand legalese. A paralegal must also be a good listener. Now, being a listener is just not sitting there listening and taking notes. You need to be an active listener. And what that means is that you're paying close attention while you're taking notes, and you're communicating back to that person. When you engage with that person, you're asking questions. You may even if you don't have a question to ask, you can rephrase just what they said to you. That gives the client the indication that you are an active listener, and they relax more. They become at ease with you, and it's a very positive experience, because most of the time when clients come in, they're dealing with something that's unpleasant. And the more that you're able to be a good communicator, a good listener, an active listener, they relax more, and they're able to communicate better with you, and you're able to communicate better with them. It also gives the appearance that you are very intelligent in your field of work. It looks really good to the supervising attorney. Okay? Another one is being a good case manager and organizer. Now, paralegals, usually when they come into a law firm, it's already set up. But you need to be able to build your case files and organize them in such a way that anyone can come behind you and find out what's going on in that case with just looking at it, okay? You don't need to have codes or anything like that. It's only for you. You need to be able to, if something were to happen to you one day, and the very next day that there was a trial, you need to be able to have another paralegal slip right in and be able to know what's going on in that case. Okay? A lot of firms are relying on the paralegals to be the office expert. So they will look to them to do data storage, collection systems, management of the files, management of the court calendars, of the exhibits, and all that. So you have to be very good at organizing. I went into a law firm not long ago in which I walked in and they, first of all, had no receptionist or anyone there to greet you. Okay, so that's a major red flag. But they had no filing cabinets anywhere. They had boxes stacked from floor to ceiling with people's names on them and their birthdays. And so I asked them, I says, what are all these boxes here? Well, there are client files. People, please do not put your client files in banker boxes and put their names on the outside of them. If you cannot afford, if you're a small firm and cannot afford filing cabinets, and they're fairly cheap, find out a way that you can code them in such a way that not some John Smith from the street can come in and say, oh, well, that's my neighbor. He must be so-and-so and so. So you need to make sure that there's a little bit of secrecy to what your firm and who your clients are and all that, okay? One of the things that I have found that helps me with dealing with dates is a good planner. Now, I'm not talking about these really thick 4-inch binders and all that sort of stuff. I'm talking about just a good standard monthly planner that takes you throughout the year. Has a space for you to put notes if you need to. You can also use an app on your phone if that you're more comfortable with that. I just find that it's not as easy to make notes and things on that. Some firms have in-house software that they use, like Clio and other things, that they can also access from their home at night or whatever, which is very good. I think that's very important, especially in our atmosphere now of having to work at home for a year. You need to be able to access that anywhere. But sometimes you don't have access to a computer, so a good paper planner, a book of some sort, some planner, day runner or whatever, gives you the access to things that you wouldn't be able to access unless you're in front of a computer. It also helps with if you're not near a phone. If you're near a phone but you're not near a computer, you can always take notes in your planner. So that's another good thing. So just make sure that you have a good filing system in your firm. Okay? And the last trait is leadership. Attorneys almost always delegate to the paralegal and the things that they don't have time for. And sometimes they have to supervise the support staff too. So paralegals take on leadership roles in the law firm, in private businesses, and corporations. They can supervise other paralegals. They can supervise administrative staff. And they do that because they have a knowledge of the legal aspects of the work involved. Paralegals are ideally situated to make difficult decisions regarding resource allocation and staffing. They can be the middle person between the attorneys, partners, and the administrative staff. And that's a very important part to have, because you need to be able to take what the partners and attorneys want and word it in such a way that it gets the information to the administrative staff without the administrative staff having to have gone to law school. So that's very important. Great leaders also possess integrity, honesty, humility, and a clear focus. I would never ask a subordinate staffer to do anything that I haven't, one, already done myself, or two, am willing to do at that moment. Okay? So that is a very good trait to have. They also help other people reach their goals. So if you have someone that is struggling, help them. If you have someone that is better in one area and you have another paralegal that's not, maybe have that person be a mentor for a little while. Paralegal supervisors are very important in a law firm if you have a lot of paralegals. And this person is not afraid to hire people that may be actually better than them. They take pride in their paralegals' accomplishments, and they help them along the way. That is extraordinarily important because you do not want to have continuous turnover in office. If you apply for a position and you see that there have been a turnover in that office every 3 months, every 6 months, there's a problem with the paralegal supervisor or the office administrator, sometimes it's called. You don't want to work there. You will not be happy. A paralegal that is a supervisor that has leadership abilities will always push their employees or their subordinates to do their very best work, and that's who you want to work for. So, the great takeaway from all these traits and how to be a great paralegal, or if you are going to be a great paralegal, you always continue to learn. That's one of the most important things in this job field, is that you always continue to learn. Just don't take the 6 hours that's required, or 8 hours, or whatever state you're in. Don't just take those hours that you're required as a certified paralegal to continue for the next year. Take more than that. Take classes at your community college. Become indispensable to your firm. You'll never regret it. Now, don't do it because you're expecting great things for yourself. You probably won't get a pay raise. You probably won't get a raise in stature at your firm, but you will be able to have the self-confidence to do your job well and to extend your hand out into other areas of law. That's really what you want to do. So, strive to be a great paralegal. That's what I would do. So, thank you for joining me on this very first podcast, and we're going to have more in the next few weeks about how you can know if you're on the right track of being a paralegal. We're going to be talking with some certified paralegals that will give their knowledge about their job and some tips and tricks from them. So, stay tuned.